Everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Life podcast and YouTube channel. I am so excited to be here with you today after a couple of days missing. Yeah. Life is like this sometimes, right? Sometimes the life looks like a placid lake with, just still as glass. You can see the reflection of the clouds. Other days, life looks like the the scene in the Perfect Storm movies, right? With waves that are, like skyscrapers, right? And then, of course, there's everything in between. And sometimes, even in a single, few minutes, life can look like both of those and several points of in between, right? And that's the point, right? That we never know what life is going to present to us. We never know. Life is nothing but a potential. We wake up in the morning, we make assumptions because, most of us live very predictable lives, right? We go to work every Monday through Friday. We drive a certain way, and we got cars now. They're very reliable. The electricity is a lot reliable. The plumbing's reliable. There's very little that goes wrong in our lives these days, right? But that's not to say it sometimes doesn't happen. Right? Sometimes you're driving to work and there's an accident and you're snarled in traffic for an hour maybe, right? You couldn't have seen that coming. There's no way. And so our job then, right, or our task, if you will, as mindfulness practitioners, is not to try to control the outside circumstances, not try to limit the size of the waves out there, right? As John Kabat-Zinn tells us, we can't control the waves, but we can learn to surf. And that's what we're doing here, right? We're learning the skills, or we're learning the practices that if you do these practices and you cultivate these sort of concepts, you will develop the skill of being able to surf. And the beautiful thing about this, and it's not necessarily really true about actual surfing, but the thing that's true about this kind of surfing, which is mindfulness surfing, right? Which is just, again, just the ability to handle whatever life hands us, right? Whatever life, presents on any given moment, we can handle it. We can handle it with equanimity. We can handle it with skill, right? We're not judging it. We're not running from it. We're not clinging to it. We're just accepting it, and we're facing it, and we're living it in the present moment with regulation and with optimization, so that we can make wise decisions and move through our greater lives with more happiness and more wellness and more well-being. So, as John Kabat-Zinn says, again, we can't control the waves, but we can learn to surf, right? So it's all about skill, right? It's all about preparation. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. So I've been reading a book. I just started a book the other day called The Web of Life by Fritjof Capra, Fritzzof, I think it is, Capra, Capra. He also wrote the Tao of Physics, right? And so it's very, very fascinating science stuff, very much in the, the quantum physics realm and all that kind of stuff. Systems thinking is what he's talking about and stuff. And so anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is that he's brought up the 19th century chemist and microbiologist Louis Pasteur a number of times, even in the first few chapters. And this means something to me, right? Louis Pasteur is actually the author of one of my all-time favorite quotes that I'm going to share with you in a few moments. But first, a little background on our friend, Mr. Pasteur, okay? As I said, I think I looked him up the other day, and I think he was born in 1822, so figure he probably died somewhere between 1880 and 1900, right? Something like that, maybe early 1900s. I don't know. I don't remember looking that up. I just remember seeing 1822. Okay, that's the sort of era. But anyway, he is known for many, many things. First of all, there's a very famous and very like the MIT of France, right, is called the Louis Pasteur, or the Institut de Pasteur, I believe it's called, right? But that's essentially, again, like the Caltech or the MIT, of France, right? Like heavy science stuff, right? And That's where Matthew Richard graduated, right? I think I've talked about Matthew Richard in this podcast many times, where Matthew Richard is a Buddhist monk who graduated with a PhD from the Institute Pasteur in, I think it was like molecular biology or something like that. And then he became a Buddhist monk, right? And I always say at this point that I'm sure his parents were just thrilled with that decision. Right, all you parents out there know what I'm saying. But anyway, but Louis Pasteur is known for many things. The one that you are probably most familiar with is the process of pasteurization. Pasteurization is just the etymology of that word comes from Pasteur, as in Louis Pasteur. So every time I mean, you know me, I don't drink milk, but almost all milk that you can buy in the store, if you are a milk drinker, is pasteurized. So you use Louis Pasteur's method all the time. And of course, that's not I mean, they pasteurize orange juice, they pasteurize all kinds of different food. It's one of the things that's enabled us to live civilized life, So anyway, two other things that Louis Pasteur is very famous for is the discovery or the development of the vaccines for rabies and anthrax. Okay, so if you have a dog, you have used Louis Pasteur's vaccine on your puppy, and so. The thing I want to talk about, though, with Louis Pasteur, the quote really applies to the other that other vaccine, which was the anthrax vaccine. Because you see, the thing is, in order to come up with it, in order to develop a vaccine for something, you have to find that something first, right? And that's the thing. It wasn't that anthrax was this, raging thing that was going on. It actually was never heard of. I mean, maybe people died from it not knowing what it was and stuff like that. But it was discovered by Louis Pasteur, and then he created the vaccine for it, right? At least that's the way I understand it. I could be, some of my details might be a little foggy, but anyway, the whole point of this quote that I'm about to share with you, I'm really making you wait for this one, aren't I? You're on the edge of your seat about this quote, aren't you? But the reason the reason why this quote is so pertinent is, or what it applies to, is the discovery of anthrax. Because you see, the thing is that Louis Pasteur was not looking for anthrax. He was looking for something completely different. I don't remember what it was exactly. It might have been the rabies. I don't know. But he wasn't looking for anthrax. That's not what he was looking for. But that's what he found. And it was a major life, earth-changing discovery. Right? I mean, the discovery of such a heavy pathogen. Now, of course, it was ultimately, just as humans do, it was used for biological weapons and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you can put it up there with Einstein and the rest of them who created, ultimately the nuclear weapons, right? Was that really good? But anyway, somebody was going to discover it, right? And so anyway, so this is a major discovery by accident. And that's important because Louis Pasteur's quote, and here it is. Are you ready? Here it comes. The quote is, "Chance favors the prepared mind." One more time. Chance favors the prepared mind. Which is to say, when we apply it to something like a discovery of something that we weren't really looking for, like anthrax, right? Of course, you and I are not looking for anything, and we're not going to find anthrax. But anyway, in the context of Louis Pasteur, his whole world, right? What this means is that when you commit to a process, right? When you show up moment by moment, day by day, and you commit and you set the intention to do whatever the process is, right? And then every time your attention wanders away from that process, you bring your attention back to that process. Then what you're doing is you're training your mind. You are preparing yourself. You are optimizing yourself. You're priming yourself so that when an opportunity arises, you can meet that opportunity. And you can meet that opportunity again with readiness. And that is the important thing, because plenty of us see opportunities all the time and they pass us by because we're not ready for them. And I mean, in that sense, we don't even notice them, right? Because we're not prepared for them. We're not prepared for the chance that, whoa, there it was. And I mean, many of us don't even know what we're missing, right? Of course, right? If we're not aware of it, we're not aware of what we're missing, right? And so, as I was describing that process, and I don't know anything about Louis Pasteur's actual process, but I'm sure it had to be something like that because that's really what the process is, right? And that process, I was specifically using the same words that I used to describe the process of meditation because it's no different, right? We set an intention. I'm going to pay attention to X. Let's say X is our breath. I'm going to pay attention to my breath. Start paying attention to my breath. There it is. I can feel it. I can sense it. I'm paying attention to it. Now my mind wanders off. My phone just buzzed, or my, I heard a dog barking, or I just thought of something, what am I going to have for lunch, right? And my mind has wandered off. Well, now I just bring my mind back to that thing that I set my intention to focus on. And like Louis Pasteur's process, meditation prepares our mind. It prepares our mind to show up in the present moment. It prepares our mind to experience life as a present moment experience. Not creating doubt that doesn't exist, not creating optimism that doesn't exist, but instead just being present for it. And in that presence, in that preparation, or the preparedness, I should say, that is when we can seize upon a chance. And this applies also to whatever it is that you do in your life, right? Like if you're, working a restaurant, right? The more you're paying attention to working in the restaurant, the more you are going to be valuable to someone who, just opened up or wants a partner to open up a restaurant. I need somebody who knows all the stuff. Well, if there's one person who's paying attention to everything all the time, well, that person's going to be more prepared for that. But of course, it doesn't have to be about what we do for a living either, right? Like they say that, and of course, I mean, this is going to go back to money, but like Quentin Tarantino, right? like he became, he directed and wrote some of the most famous movies of the 1990s, right? Or 2000, somewhere there, right? And he didn't go to film school. He wasn't groomed from a young age to become some filmmaker. He was working in a video store. He just watched a lot of movies. And by watching all of those movies, he was prepared. And so when there was an opportunity that, hey, do you want to write a film? I don't remember exactly how that happened, but it was something like that where he just wrote a script and sold it to someone. That chance was, the opportunity, and the chance was somebody who could read this script. I got their attention. Here it is. I'm prepared. I'm ready for this. Right? And so this brings up another really important concept, which is, this is actually a quote from Alan Watts, who's another person I like to quote a lot. And let me see if I can remember this exact quote. I don't remember exactly, but essentially what he's saying is that we should be measuring our day not in terms of our productivity or how productive we were today, but instead how present we were today, right? And so when I see these two quotes, the chance favors the prepared mind, and measure your success or your day based on presence rather than productivity, right? These are both kind of working on a very common to each other and very important truth, I think. Right? Because so much of our lives, right, whether it's the schooling or, work on a team, right, or, a sports team, or even like a chess club, or, certainly in our work, we're so used to tying any value to a production, a product that we have created, and of course, how many of those products we've created in how much time, right? And the problem with that is that when we're focusing and we're sort of, almost forcing our way into, my self-worth is connected to and a result of how much I got done today, right? Well, then what we're really doing is we're working against that whole idea of chance favors the prepared mind, right? Because if we're so focused and we're so, kind of hyper focused on what do I need to do today? How much can I get done today? Well, then we're really not paying attention to what's really happening, right? Most of the time, if we're in that kind of state, we're either looking ahead to say, how much time do I have left to produce X amount of things? Or we're looking behind saying, oh man, what happened? How come I'm so far behind or far ahead of my production schedule, whatever, right? And so when we're driving ourselves with this concept of our productivity, it takes away from our ability to prepare. Another quote, and this is actually not even a quote, just a concept that I remember reading, is that we've got to start valuing just sitting around and doing nothing. Right? Because sitting around and doing nothing, like for instance, this morning, I recently I finished up my 12-week workshop series, the winter workshop series. It was amazing, y'all, and the next one that starts, I can't wait to tell you about it. So I hope you all join it because it was really amazing. But anyway, wrapped up a few weeks ago, and so like the last 2 Saturdays, I haven't had much to do, right? Where before that it was like I have a lot to do. Like everything is about this workshop. It's like 2.5 hours. I got to prepare. I got to, make sure I got enough food. I go to the bathroom. It's like so much going on, right? And so these last couple of Saturdays, I've been like, oh man, I feel like I don't have anything to do. And then, of course, the conditioning of my life, right? Because I'm an American, right? and then I've tied my sense of worth to my productivity for so long that it actually feels uncomfortable to not have anything to do, right? This is where the mind craves the familiar. Right. So like, my mind wants to be busy the way it's been in the last 12 weeks because my mind knows that I've survived it, and that was good. So we can do that. Keep doing that. It's working, all the emotions you're feeling, everything's going on. It's going well. Keep doing it. But I also cognitively know that no, it's over. We got to give it a few weeks now and before we start the next thing. That's just the way it works. And so in the meantime, I can sit here and, experience aversion and clinging over how much I'm not getting done, right? And oh my gosh, my life is falling apart because I'm not getting all this stuff done on Saturday, right? And in that place, then I'm not doing any preparation, right? So instead, what I've decided to do is instead of, and then of course what we would wind up doing is try to find something else to do, right? Like fix it, find some other way to fill up all that time. Figure it out. Something that's productive, please, right? But instead, I've committed to not doing anything else, actually just leaving that time open and seeing what fills it. Right? Not actually doing anything. In fact, I guess I'm doing this during the time, but it's a little different, right? But the point is though, what I wanted to share with you is that, for 2 hours this morning, because I wasn't dealing with this whole thing, I sat down and I just thought, and I just I watched a little video of from a person who I know who does email marketing instructions, and so I'm like kind of checking out some styles that they talk about and sort of approaches and stuff that I normally wouldn't even engage in, but I'm like, well, I'm free, so let me check this out, right? Let me watch this video, just see what happens, right? Taking a chance, right? But because I am in a process, right, and because of the process of doing my work day after day after day after day after day, my mind is prepared. And all of a sudden, she said something in this video that I would never have even heard. And it changed everything for the way I'm approaching my next endeavor, for my next program that I'm about to launch. I've been trying to figure out, like, what am I doing here? What, there's like a couple of missing pieces I could not put in. I just couldn't find it. And of course, again, I start to feel panic. I got to produce. I got to get this done. What's going to happen? So I could have just forced myself to do it anyway and just, whatever, just leave that part out, just do it, and that wouldn't have worked, right? And so instead I said, no, just be patient. Don't judge it by the productivity, judge it by the presence. Because the more present I am all day, not thinking about, oh, what am I not getting done? Or, oh man, what didn't I get done yesterday? But instead, no, what's happening right now? And being really there with it, that is a form of preparation, right? So now when I'm in this state, because being present allows me to be open to things, it allows me to be calm and connected to myself and to the situation, and to be, to approach it with an equanimity and the ability for resilience, right? And so, boom, I figured it all out. Like, I put together in a 5-minute flash the thing that I've been struggling with for weeks, just boom, snapped into place in 5 minutes. And of course, it was even less. The moment it happened was a microsecond. It was a millisecond that happened, that the neuron in my brain fired and the idea came. It's a millisecond, nanosecond maybe, as small as you can figure out. So you see, just sitting around doing nothing is not just sitting around doing nothing. Now, of course, if I had decided, instead of, sitting around and sort of being present with my work, and instead decided to do video games or something, well, then I wouldn't have had this, right? That is not preparing my mind for this, right? That's not to say that I couldn't take a break. In fact, last week I did. I don't think I even came into my office last Saturday during this thing, right? I was just like, I think I went out all day, or, at least part of the day, intentionally. Like, I'm going to take a break from it, and that's okay too, right? But that's the thing, right? If you're really present with what you're doing and not measuring yourself against productivity, but instead measuring yourself against presence, you're preparing yourself. And then even when you're on a hike, you're likely to come up with an idea that says, oh, shoot, that's the thing. That's the answer to everything I've been struggling with. And when you have that moment, folks, ooh, that feels good. It really does feel good. So take a moment. And of course, now there's different ways we can sort of, measure this, right? As I say, like, we're not measuring our day against productivity, but instead measuring our day against presence, right? This can happen in two different ways. You can do it at the end of the day, just looking back and saying, how present was I all day today? And be honest with yourself. You got to be honest. You don't have to tell anybody else, but you got to be honest with yourself. Okay, you can tell me if I'm your coach, right? You can trust me, and you'll know that after the first meeting we have. But you can also do it moment by moment, right? Just noticing, in this moment, am I working towards productivity, or am I working towards presence? Because often what you'll find is, if you're working towards present, productivity comes from that presence in a more enhanced way. So don't worry about not being productive. You'll be fine, right? You will produce more than you need to if you're present. But in fact, if you're not present, that can adversely and negatively impact your productivity. It's a twisted logic, but you got to stay with it. And that's the thing, right? That's what mindfulness practices are. So if all day long you're checking in, how present am I right now? How present am I right now? How present am I right now? Well, then in a few weeks, you're going to be present most of the time. That's the way it works. And so this is yet another very simple way in which we can introduce mindfulness into our moment-to-moment experience. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to get going. Not even sure how long I've been on here for. Well, not too bad. A little short, but hope you all don't mind. I am, but now that I got this you this revelation, I'm gonna be there's a couple of new programs coming up. Okay, there's one that's gonna be all about trauma. That's not the one I figured out today. There's another one that's gonna be about optimization, right? And that's the one I figured out today. And you're going to be hearing about that, especially if you're on my mailing list. Now, if you're watching this video and you are not on my mailing list, I don't have a fancy link that you can hit or whatever, but send me an email at art@artburnscoaching.com, and I will put you on my mailing list so you will not miss anything about my mindfulness for optimization and my mindfulness for trauma understanding and healing that are both coming up very soon. Okay? All right, everybody. Thanks again for watching. Thanks again for listening. I wish you well, and I'll see you soon.